Hi, sir. How are you doing this afternoon?
I am well, thank you.
So let's begin. Welcome to Love Heals Cancer and ZenOnco.io. I am Arohi from ZenOnco, and this is our Cancer Healing Journey interview where we invite speakers who have been through cancer either as patients or as caregivers or as survivors. These CHJs are very close to our heart because a lot of people have come and told us that after listening to other people's journey, they feel inspired and the journeys give them confidence that if other people have beaten cancer, so can they. So thank you very much for being a part of today's Cancer Healing Journey talk. And we would like to begin with a brief introduction about yourself first.
Sure. My name is Sanjay Deshpande. I am 30 years old. I work as a learning designer by day, and I do a lot of cancer advocacy work around young adults with cancer by the evening. And um, I really love to try different cuisines. I want to travel the world before I kick the bucket. And I'm very passionate about mental health and queer rights.
We'd like to begin with a brief about what all were the initial symptoms that you felt after which you went to the doctor and the cancer got diagnosed.
Sure. So I am a brain cancer survivor. That's the that's the label that comes closest to what I identify as. But what I really am is a person living with chronic cancer because brain cancers are incurable, so there are no cures. Currently, I don't have any signs of tumor, so that's what comes closest to being not detectable. But since there's no cure for brain cancer, which is why I call myself a brain cancer survivor, but I haven't beaten cancer in any way. There is still cancer there. It will grow back. We just don't know when it will grow back. It might grow back in 3 years. It might grow back in 5 years. It might grow back in 10 years. But right now, I don't have any tumor. So I'm currently tumor free. But the type of cancer I have is a very slow growing type. And I have all the favorable markers which make it responsive to treatment. So my type of cancer is like type 2 diabetes and hypertension and cholesterol. It requires certain amount of maintenance, and every time there's a flare up, I need to treat it. But once the treatment is done, I can go back to life. It's not necessarily go back to previous life or go back to the normal life, but I can go back to life, which is why I identify as someone living with chronic cancer. And unfortunately, there is no cure for my type of cancer. The first time I found out that there's something wrong with me was when I had a grand mal seizure, which is a sort of a seizure where you completely lose control of your body. You fall down and you have fits and you start foaming at your mouth, and you lose consciousness, and you can't breathe for a long time, and you bite your tongue and insides of your cheek. This happened in April 2021, and my parents are both doctors, so then we got all blood tests done. Everything seemed normal, so they didn't necessarily see the need to get an MRI done. My parents are both diabetic, so they thought I could have had a seizure because of hypoglycemia when you have low blood sugar. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. I went to the US in August 2021 to do my master's at Harvard University. And on the day I landed on my campus is the day I had another grand mal seizure. And this time around, it was so bad that I couldn't breathe for 5 minutes, and they thought that I'd die. So then the people around me called 911, and I was rushed to the emergency room. And in the emergency room, they first gave me a CT scan, and the CT scan showed that there's something in my brain. And then they needed an MRI, so they shifted me to Harvard Medical School's official hospital. I got an MRI done over there. The MRI showed that there is a lesion or like a tumor in the brain. And one of the young doctors over there sat me down and told me that I'm very sorry to tell you, but you, in all likelihood, have glioma. I didn't understand what a glioma means, so I asked him to explain. Can you tell me what that means? And he told me that it seems like you have a form of brain cancer and it's incurable, and you probably won't live more than 5 years. And that was really devastating. I was in a country far away from all my family. I have a sister who lives in the US, but she was very far away from where I was in Massachusetts. And it was extremely shocking. And they told me that I needed an emergency surgery immediately. And just about as they were ready to prep me for surgery, I told the neurosurgeon over there that my parents are doctors. I'd really like to go back to India to get the treatment done. They didn't want to do that because they're like, we don't know if you'll be able to live if you do not get the surgery done immediately. Um, but I really was adamant. So I made the neurosurgeon speak to my father. My father and I were able to convince him that I will get a surgery done as soon as possible once I'm back in India. So that's when they discharged me, making me sign a declaration saying that if you die or if anything happens to you, it's not our fault, it's not our responsibility. It was very scary, but I had just unpacked my clothes in the hostel that day. I went back to my hostel room, repacked my clothes, and went back to my sister's place, and then flew back to India to start my treatment. That's how I first found out that I have brain cancer.
And since you were so far away from home, what was your parents' first reaction when they got to know from you that you have cancer?
I think they were really, I couldn't even communicate to my parents because when I was in the ER, they had sedated me to make sure I didn't have any more seizures. So I was completely knocked out for, I think, about 12 hours. And once I came out of my um, sleep per se, I had almost no charge left in my phone. And since I was in a foreign country, I did not have international calls enabled on my phone either. And I never was in a situation where I didn't have Wi-Fi, so I never installed like internet services on my local phone number. So all I could do was I was able to call my sister, and not even my sister. I actually called my brother-in-law, my Jiju, and I told him that this has happened. And then I told him to tell my sister, and then I told my sister to tell my parents, and that's how my parents found out. And after my surgery and after I started healing, when I asked them how did they react, they said that they almost had a heart attack and they couldn't stop crying. So yeah, that's how they reacted.
And what all treatments did you undergo?
Once I was back to India, I met multiple doctors, neurosurgeons, surgical oncologists, medical oncologists. Everyone suggested that the first line of treatment has to be surgery. So then, based on the surgery, they will be able to hopefully completely resect the tumor. And once the tumor has been sent for biopsy pathology reports, and based on what the reports come up, they will decide whether or not I need any additional treatment. So we met multiple doctors. I wasn't very comfortable with many of them, but we finally picked one doctor in Hyderabad who is the best, and who did a wonderful job of my surgery. I was diagnosed on 1st September 2021. I flew back to India on 8th September 2021. I got my surgery done on 28th September 2021. And I was back home on 30th September 2021. So the surgery was successful. They managed to remove the entire tumor. And since it wasn't in a um, area which was crucial for any important functions, I wasn't affected very badly by it. Um, And 24 hours after the surgery, I was moved from the critical care unit, surgical care unit, to my room. And I think 24 hours after that, they discharged me because they saw that I was responding very well. I did not have any issues. So then I moved back home. So surgery was the first thing they did. And then we waited for 15, 20 days for my biopsy reports. They took a long time because apparently my sort of tumor is very rare. So they had to be very sure that they're giving me the correct diagnosis. So after 20 days, when we went to collect the reports, we found out that I have grade 2 oligodendroglioma, which is like one of the rarest forms of brain cancer. And it happens to almost like 1 in a million people or something. So clearly very interesting way to be unique and extraordinary. But yeah, so then I met with my neurosurgeon. He suggested no treatment right now. We'll just wait and watch if the tumor is growing back, because I had all the favorable genetic markers. My tumor form was slow growing. It was also caught early. It was only stage 2. And I had the molecular markers which are favorable for treatment if required. And I was young. I was just 29, and I did not have any comorbidities. I didn't have any other health issues. So they decided to put me on wait and watch. So since then, I've been getting MRIs regularly, and I'm under strict observation for my for any signs of regrowth or recurrence.
And did you try any alternative treatment as well?
I did. I tried some yoga. I tried some naturopathy. I tried um, some Ayurvedic stuff as well. In fact, I worked with Shilpa from ZenOnco, the nutritionist, to carve out my to carve out my diet plan, and I more or less followed the diet plan that she has prescribed. And I must say that she is extremely patient and extremely understanding, and I thoroughly recommend everyone who's listening to this to try her out. And she's very, very helpful.
And would you like to provide us with some more details about the dietary modifications that were suggested and that you followed?
So the interesting thing is that in the world of allopathy, or like in the world of Western medicine, diet isn't given as much attention as it is given in the Eastern traditions or the Indian tradition. I was told strictly to avoid, unhealthy food like packaged foods or fried foods or like outside food. But other than that, I was not told anything else. I was told you can eat whatever you want. There is no restriction whatsoever. But based on my own research and then based on what the onco-nutritionist Shilpa told me, I was able to figure out that there are certain things that help fight the possibility of a faster recurrence and the number of recurrences I can have. So, and plus, I was pre-diabetic. I still am pre-diabetic, and I have issues with hypoglycemia, which happen after every meal. So, I had to cut down on wheat and white rice completely. So, I only eat brown rice and millets. And I had to cut down on fried food completely. I had to cut down on processed foods completely. I had to give up on sugar completely. I had to change my salt from iodized white salt to pink Himalayan rock salt. I had to change my oils from like the chemical refined oils to cold pressed or physically refined oils like rice bran oil, sesame oil, groundnut oil, etc. I also had to eat more vegetables and fruits in a day, and nuts and seeds. And I had to give up the kind of dairy that I was having and change it to A2 cow's milk. And it's been a little expensive to be able to do all of this. None of this is easy or cheap, might I add, but I'm hoping that it will help me live well for as long as I can.
And how did you manage your emotional and mental well-being during this entire journey?
Oh, I have a therapist to thank God for. I wouldn't have survived without my therapist. Um, my therapist, if I may take the liberty to name her, Fauzia Naqvi, is a person that I have been working with now for years, 2.5 years, and she's seen me through thick and thin, and I am extremely grateful to have her as my therapist. And earlier I worked with her for other stuff, but since cancer happened, I've been working with her for cancer. And I realize only now that people who do not have a therapist or who do not have a counselor must struggle so much more than I do, because they have no one to listen to them and no professional help. I strongly recommend anyone who has been diagnosed with cancer, going through treatment, after treatment also, if you're a survivor and going through survivorship, you will still have a lot of mental and emotional challenges that you haven't dealt with yet. Right after your diagnosis, you literally have no time to think about what's happening to your life. So you start with your treatment, you go through the motions. But during the treatment, you basically have like a set of milestones, right? Pehle ye karenge, then we'll do that, then we'll do this, then we'll try that. And of course, you need to maintain your strength and, sort of resolve to get through that. But once you're done with treatment, if you're lucky enough to get done with treatment, you will suddenly realize that you're hit by a truck. All that you were suppressing for so long because you didn't have the time to think about it will fall on you like a ton of bricks. And that's when you actually, I strongly believe that survivorship is a lot more difficult than diagnosis and treatment, at least for me, because the diagnosis and treatment happened in a blink of an eye. And I didn't really have the time to process any of it. But once the treatment was done, all of this was falling down on me, right? Like, why me? What did I do? Is this karma? Is this kismet? Um, पिछले जन्म में मैंने क्या पाप किया, is that even a reality, etc. And then there's a lot that happens, right? And especially when you're a young person with cancer, right? Like all my friends go out, party, drink, smoke, do young people stuff, and here I am not allowed to do any of those things. Heck, because I've had a brain surgery, I'm not even allowed to dance. Like imagine like a young person who's not allowed to do the one activity that they love the most and they find expression and meaning through. So that's when I realized that young people with cancer require a lot of support, because they are going through a period of time that's very different from, say, children or older adults, because you're either starting school, finishing school, starting college, finishing college, making friends, building networks, starting your first job, climbing in your career ladder, finding a partner, falling in love, getting married, trying to have kids, having kids, raising kids, moving countries. So, such pivotal moments in your life. And in any of those moments, if you get diagnosed with cancer, and you have to go through the cancer experience, it is devastating in ways that one can't even describe. So there is a lot of support available for people who have children who have cancer, like young children under the age of 17. And there's a lot of support to geriatric cancer patients, right? Patients who are above the age of 50, 70, 80. But there is no support available for young adults with cancer, right? Like people between the ages of 18 to 39. Like at that time period where like everything that is exciting in your life is happening to you, and you're sort of trying to figure out who you are, what you want to do in life, who do you want to become. And bam, suddenly cancer comes and hits you. And you're like, what am I doing? Is this like the job I want to do? What do I do with my life? Where do I get the money to pay all this treatment from? I was independent for a few years. Now I'm back with my parents. I'm dependent on them. I'm supposed to be taking care of them in my old age, but they are taking care of me. There's a lot happening there, right? So I feel like there wasn't any help or support available for me right after my treatment ended. And that's where the mental health help helped. But I realized that since there's nothing available in this space, I personally took on the challenge of creating some resource for people like me. And I have led the effort to uh, write and publish a book co-authored by other Indian young adult patients, survivors, and caregivers called Don't Ask Me How I'm Doing, Life, Death, and Everything in Between, which is going to come out in December. And I would strongly recommend everyone who's listening to this, who is a young adult with cancer or young adult who has been a caregiver who has been a support for young adult cancer patient or survivor, to read this book because it has stories from 10 different people from across the world who are Indians who have gone through the cancer experience, have dealt with the same issues. And these issues are very salient. What do you do with your career? What do you do with your academics? What do you do with fertility? What do you do with intimacy? What do you do with marriage? How do you raise a child when you know you have a terminal cancer? What do you do when you suddenly realize that all the hopes and dreams you've had for your life have come crashing down? Or what do you do when you've moved countries in hopes of setting up a better life for yourself and suddenly you have cancer? So all of these are difficult experiences. And I think that there is no such resource available in India. There are a few that are available in the West, but very different cultures, very different expectations of what people should do, should not do. But this can help people in India, and I strongly recommend everyone to check it out if you are a young adult cancer patient, survivor, and caregiver. Even if you're not a cancer patient, survivor, or caregiver, if you're just a person who wants to know what it's like to meet death in its eyes and realize that you're a mortal person and how it changes you should check out the book.
I'm sure people would love to read your book. And what about the times, those dark times when you felt like giving up? What kept you going during those times?
Honestly, it was writing this book because it was partially bibliotherapy, where you engage in writing as a form of therapy and you engage in reading as a form of therapy. So the book kept me anchored because it gave me a mission and a purpose in life. Like, I want to help others like me, especially the people who come after me, right? Like, it's also partly like a form of legacy, right? We all want to leave something behind. We all want to make a dent in the universe. We all want to do something that we will be remembered by. And I didn't know how long I had, and I didn't know what was going to happen to me. So I thought, okay, I'm pretty sure there are many others like me. And if there are many others like me, they must feel equally isolated and alone in this experience. And I'd like them to also understand that they are not alone. There are many others like them. So the book really helped me stay anchored in times like this.
Would you like to tell us about some of the lifestyle changes that you made and that you still follow today?
I've had to make completely 180 degrees change in my lifestyle. I used to be a night owl. I used to stay up pretty late at night. I used to love eating out. I used to love dancing, and like, I've had to make significant changes to my lifestyle. I have to sleep for 8 hours every night, sleep early, wake up early, go for a walk in a garden, come back home, eat breakfast on time, and make sure it's healthy, it's millets or something like that. And then eat smaller meals throughout the day and make sure I don't miss any meals and I stay hydrated and I'm not eating anything unhealthy. And yeah, it's just difficult. Imagine being a 30-year-old and like trying to live like a 60-year-old. It's not a fun thing to do. I never anticipated that I would have to live this regimented life at the age of 30. And all my friends are gallivanting and like traveling the world, like partying at night and like going out and eating out and all of that. So it's quite difficult, but I'm trying to do my best so that I have better chances of living as well as possible for as long as I can.
What about your message for other cancer patients and their caregivers?
This may seem a little counterintuitive, but it works very well for me. Everyone's going to die. It's not about whether or not you'll be able to beat death. The point is not about beating death. The point is about living life while you're alive. So, what I'd like all of you to remember is that it's not about trying to live longer. Everyone has been trying to search for a miracle drug that makes you immortal, but that's never going to happen. Being human means we're going to die. We have been dying since the day we have been born, right? Like life is a journey towards death, but that doesn't mean that you have to give up on your life while you're alive. And don't avoid death, don't be worried about or scared of death, but realize that because you know you're going to die and because you know that you're a mortal person, you have an opportunity to live life right now. Do everything you wanted to do right now. No more procrastination, no more saying that I'll do this once I've made enough money, or I'll do this once, I've achieved that promotion, or like I'll do this once my kids have settled, or like I've been able to find a way to become independent enough. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So do everything that you want to do right now, and don't be scared of what lies ahead, because nobody really knows, not even people who do not have cancer. It's just that because you have cancer, you're just more aware of the fact that you are a mortal person and you may die one day. So point is to not try to run away from death, but realize that death is coming for all of us, and live more fully and truthfully right now.
And what would you say are your top three learnings from this journey?
I hate it being called journey. It's not a journey. I didn't choose to climb Mount Everest. I didn't choose to go to Hawaii. I didn't choose to go to Maldives. Similarly, I didn't choose to get cancer. So it's not a journey, it's an experience. The three takeaways for me from this experience is that life is unpredictable. Nobody knows what's going to happen in their life. So no matter how much you plan for your life, it will always throw curveballs at you. So that's number one. Number two, all you really have is right now and today. So live your life right now and in the present. Don't keep building castles in the air for the future when you don't really know what's in the future. The third learning I've had is that you won't know what you're capable of doing till you try. So you might tell yourself, oh, I'm not an author, I'm not a poet, I'm not a musician. But how will you know till you not try it? Right? So since I've gotten cancer, I've written poetry, I've performed poetry, I have become an author, I'm publishing a book. I have created an entire movement around young adults with cancer in India. None of the things I thought would be possible before. I had no clue that I had the talent or the ability to do any of this. So do not cut yourself short. Do the things you wanted to do.
And finally, if you had to sum up this whole experience in just one sentence, what would that be?
We're all going to die. So don't be scared of dying. But if you don't live your life while you're alive, you'll be dying twice.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. And it's been really inspiring listening to you and hearing about how you overcame all the difficulties that you faced, despite the fact that you were so far away from home or when it was the second time that you felt the symptoms. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences with us. Wish you all the very best for all your future endeavors. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye.